The Cecil Hotel, as it is known today, was originally called the Hotel Cecil or simply the Cecil. The hotel was built in 1927 by hotelier William Banks Hanna at a cost of roughly $1 million. Managed by William's brother Paul, the Hotel Cecil was designed to lure in businessmen staying in Los Angeles downtown. Unfortunately for Hanna, his new hotel couldn't compete with other hotels that were built at the same time in nicer sections of the city. The neighborhood near the hotel was already in the process of becoming the infamous Skid Row section of Los Angeles. The Hotel Cecil was dealt another major blow when the Great Depression set in just a few years after opening. Soon the Art Deco-style 700-room hotel was transformed into single-room occupancy housing for transients and people down on their luck. The Cecil quickly developed a reputation as a place of ill repute, in which people and their dreams came to die. On October 22, 1954, hotel guest Helen Gurney became the first to take her life by jumping from a window of the Hotel Cecil. The middle-aged woman had stayed at the hotel for a week prior, registering at the desk under the alias Margaret Brown. Gurney plunged from a window on the 7th floor to her death atop the hotel's marquee. On February 11, 1962, Julia Moore became the second hotel guest to jump to her death from the Hotel Cecil. She climbed out the window of her 8th-floor room, and leapt to her demise upon the interior light well of the hotel's second floor. A search of her room turned up only 59 cents in change, a bank book from Illinois displaying an account balance of $1,800 and the bus ticket she'd used to get to Los Angeles from St. Louis, Missouri. Later that same year, on October 12, guest Pauline Otten was the third woman to defenestrate herself at the Cecil. She took her own life following a visit from her estranged husband, Dewey. The couple got into an argument, leading Dewey to storm out in search of dinner at a local eatery. The 27-year-old Pauline didn't wait for her husband to return. She leapt from a 9th-floor window, landing on top of hapless 65-year-old pedestrian George Gianni, killing them both. The next time a life would be taken by another at the Hotel Cecil, it would be less accidental. On June 4, 1964, Goldie Osgood was discovered to have been murdered in her room at the Hotel Cecil. The regular resident at the hotel was a retired phone operator nicknamed Pigeon Goldie and the Pigeon Lady, for her habit of feeding the birds at nearby Pershing Square Park. The woman had been raped, stabbed and strangled. Her room was found in a state of disarray, her belongings strewn about by her attacker in an apparent robbery. A bag of birdseed lay not far from her corpse. Shortly following the crime, witnesses reported seeing 29-year-old Jacques Berliner passing through the park where Goldie had once fed the pigeons, his clothes stained with fresh blood. While he was arrested, Berliner was able to clear himself of the crime, which remains unsolved to this day. Locals scraped together what money they could to purchase flowers and hold a memorial service for the Pigeon Lady at Pershing Square on the day following her murder. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be the last time that the Hotel Cecil would be connected with murder. The Hotel Cecil was one of a number of SRO hotels that rapist and serial killer Ricardo Richard Munoz Ramirez lived in while committing some of his violent crimes in the mid-1980s. The killer the media would label the walk-in killer, the Valley Intruder, and finally the Night Stalker spent roughly a month and a half at the Hotel Cecil, dwelling in a $14 a night room on the 14th floor. He was convicted of 13 murders, though he has been linked to more. Ramirez was sentenced to death in a gas chamber in 1989, and on receiving his sentence showed no remorse, stating, "Big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland." He wasn't the only serial killer known to have stayed at the Cecil. In 1991, the Cecil Hotel briefly became the home of Jack Unterweger, a serial killer from Austria. The son of an unknown American soldier and an Austrian prostitute who abandoned him with an alcoholic grandfather and an aunt who was also a prostitute, Unterweger was in trouble from an early age. He'd committed a number of violent crimes before committing his first murder at the age of 24. In December of 1974, He beat 18-year-old Margaret Schaefer and strangled her to death with her own bra when she refused his sexual advances. He was convicted and given a life sentence for his crime in 1976. While in prison, Jack Unterweger turned to writing, creating a number of poems, short stories, plays and an autobiography which was adapted to film. His works gained the attention and support of a number of intellectuals who thought that Jack had reformed while in prison. He was paroled on May 23, 1990 and began work as a journalist. While his rehabilitation was being celebrated, including having his autobiography being taught to school children, Unterweger quietly began a murder spree only a few months later in September. By the following spring he had killed a total of 7 prostitutes. As a journalist, Jack even reported on some of the crimes for the media. As the police came closer to discovering him as the perpetrator of the series of murders, Unterweger's job took him overseas to Los Angeles, California to do a story on crime and prostitution in the United States. While he was there, Jack stayed at the Cecil Hotel, and proceeded to kill another 3 prostitutes through strangulation with their own bras. He was arrested for the final time in Miami, Florida on February 27, 1992. On June 29, 1994, Unterweger was once again sentenced to life in prison. Only it proved to be an even shorter sentence than the first. Jack Unterweger took his own life that very night by hanging himself with his shoelaces. The Cecil Hotel reportedly has ghostly guests. In December 21, 2012 it appeared in an episode of Biography Channel's Haunted Encounters, Face to Face. The episode was titled Ghosts of Skid Row, Crater Mansion. The show sent the Paranormal Syndicate team along with their canine investigator captain to explore reports of haunting at the Cecil Hotel. Resident Costin Aldrete snapped this photo, showing a mysterious figure hanging outside a 4th-floor window of the hotel. Aldrete told KABC-TV Los Angeles he suffered from nightmares after taking the snap. "When I looked at that window, it just looked kind of creepy to me, and then I showed my friend, and he kind of freaked out. It just creeps me out still," he said. Unfortunately, the Cecil has been in the news more recently. On or around January 31, 2013, 21-year-old Canadian tourist Elisa Lam went missing while staying at the Cecil Hotel. The girl, who had spent a few days sightseeing in Los Angeles before an intended trip to Santa Cruz, had checked in daily with her parents in Burnaby, British Columbia. Her family reported her missing shortly after her failure to check in with them and traveled to Los Angeles to search for her. A police search of the hotel, including a canine officer search of the roof, didn't turn up anything. The last known sighting of Lam was security footage caught by a camera in one of the hotel's elevators. In the 4-minute video, Elisa Lam is seen behaving oddly. She leans her face close to the elevator's control panel and pushes multiple buttons repeatedly. She peeks out of the elevator door and into the hallway in both directions, then she moves evasively around the elevator, appearing to try to hide in the corner from someone in the hall. She does a small jump into the hall and seems to talk with someone that can't be seen. This is followed by more repeated pushing of elevator buttons. She is then seen to stand outside the elevator, moving her hands in sweeping movements as if conducting an unseen orchestra or at times petting an invisible animal. She can also be seen bending and unbending her legs as she wrings her hands in a sort of dance. Lastly, she disappears to the side in the hall with doors opening and closing a few times like someone is pushing the button for the elevator but not getting on. During the whole thing, the elevator never changes floors. The video has led to speculation of her trying to hide from someone or the possibility of her being under the influence of drugs. The same night a longtime tenant woke up to a loud thump and flooding in his room. A connection wasn't made at that time. Elisa Lam remained missing until the morning of February 19, 2013. A hotel maintenance worker investigated guest complaints about low water pressure. His investigation led him to the 4 water tanks on top of the building. Upon opening a hatch, he discovered a body resting at the bottom of the 3/4 full tank. The police were called at 10:15 a.m. Urban Search and Rescue wasn't able to remove the body safely through the hatch and had to cut a hole in the side. The remains were positively identified as Elisa Lam by family members who recognized markings on her body. Residents had brushed their teeth, drank and bathed in the water for 19 days. A guest at the hotel said the water tasted horrible with a very funny, disgusting taste. It's a very strange taste. I can barely describe it. Although to an observer it looks as if Lam has consumed drugs when she is filmed in the lift, yet no substances were found in her system during an autopsy. The coroner ruled her death accidental due to drowning, yet many questions remain unanswered. What actually happened to Lam may never be known. Tour guide Richard Shiv put the disturbing events in history down to the crowd at the hotel. This was just a place where people who were really down on their luck were going, Shiv said. These hotels are filled with people who are at the edge of being integrated in society. The Hotel Cecil truly has had a history of violent crimes and misery. Is something evil drawing certain people to the hotel in order to feed on the evil crimes they commit? Or is it just a place that unsavory people choose to reside and commit their vile crimes? Who knows what it is that makes the Cecil a hotspot for murders, suicides, and ghostly visitors?